Serious, what's the creepiest scariest thing you've seen but no one believes you? When I was 7 or 8, I would have a recurring nightmare that one of my dolls came to life, played with me, and then would try to pull me into my closet with her. I'd follow her into the closet at first, but then she'd show me this little door at the back of the closet, and my heart would start to race. I don't know what it was about that door, but I knew something bad would happen if I went through it. I'd start to struggle and try to pull away, but the doll was too strong and would start pulling me through the door. At this point in the dream, I'd always wake up screaming. The worst part was I had night terrors, so sometimes I'd wake up standing next to my closet. Every night before bed, I'd make my parents make sure there wasn't a little door at the back of my closet. There never was. Anyway, I was talking to my mom the other day and this dream came up. I'm laughing about it and how ridiculously paranoid I was about dolls in that closet, but my mom gets really quiet. She tells me the creepy part of that dream wasn't the doll, it was the fact that there used to be a little door at the back of the closet. But when I was 1 year old, they remodeled the house and put a wall where the door used to be. There's no way I could have remembered that door, but years later, I kept dreaming about it. What was the creepiest or most paranormal thing that's ever happened to you? I shared a room with a guy in college who was a musician. He'd stay out late almost every night and come home around 3 or 4 in the morning. Our room was a straight shot through kitchen from the front door. One night I woke up to the bedroom door opening and figured it was just my roommate coming home after a gig. I thought it was strange that he turned the light on when coming in. He knew I was a light sleeper and would normally use his phone's light to shine around the room if he was looking for something while I was asleep. My bed was twin-sized positioned against the wall connecting the bedroom to the kitchen. When he came in, I was facing the wall. I kept my eyes closed and pretended I was still asleep because I didn't feel like having a conversation with a most likely drunken friend while I was still half asleep. I heard him go to his side of the room, opposite of my bed, and rustle around his desk and dresser looking for something. Sometimes he would grab some clothes for the next day and go stay at a buddy's house so I wasn't concerned. Then I felt him start reaching under my bed. I kept a few things under there, but he would normally ask before straight up taking anything of mine. At that point I was really confused and annoyed by all, so I made it a point to aggressively roll over on my other side and face the middle of the room and the direction from where he was reaching so he knew I was pissed that he was ruining my beauty sleep. Then I heard nothing. But I could feel he shot up from under the bed and was just standing there. I never opened my eyes, but I figured he would either apologize for waking me up or something. But he never said a word. He just stood there. After probably 2 minutes with the light still on, I heard him leave the room and go to the kitchen. I opened my eyes after a couple more minutes because he left the light on in the bedroom. He wasn't in the kitchen, but he had pulled a knife from the knife block and left it on the table. I checked around the house and couldn't find him, but quickly realized my Xbox, book bag, wallet, etc. were stolen. I called my roommate to see if he had been home but he was miles away at a party. He still had his house keys and never gave them to anyone else prior. I must have accidentally left the door unlocked that evening, which was the one time someone decided to check the knob. Police never followed up with me after that night so I doubt they ever caught the guy. I can't imagine what would have happened if I ever did open my eyes and see that guy standing there or if I chased him out to the kitchen. What's the creepiest thing you can say to a person who just woke up? We've been waiting for you to wake up. You don't know me, but hear me out. Precisely 8 hours, 13 minutes and 41 seconds of sleep whilst staring them in the eyes the second they open. I'm surprised the camera flash didn't wake you up. Thank you. Then you run away as fast as you can, never to be seen again. Whisper in their ears as you hug them I know and just let their imagination run free. What are some guy secrets girls don't know about? Compliments will last for weeks, months, even years. Guys are crazy for a simple "you're hot" or "you're really handsome" or something with their personality or looks. How often we fantasize about saving the day from an attack or something. P shivers. We're just as insecure as anyone. The desire to touch the top of the doorframe is a primal one. I can't understand it, I just do it. At the urinals we typically pee on soap bars, ice or plastic mats to reduce splash damage and smell. I'm secretly an emotional wreck, I just hide it. What's the creepiest most unexplained thing you've seen in broad daylight? This is my dad's story, not mine. In the 80s, my dad was in the Peace Corps and lived in Sierra Leone for 3 years. He had a motorcycle, or some sort of motorbike at least at one point, and would ride around the roads when he had free time. One day he's riding a dirt road that snakes around a small mountainside or hillside past some construction works. About half a mile after the road work, he sees a man on the side of this dirt road on the mountain hillside just laughing his butt off. And he was blue. Not like painted blue, but blue. At first my dad rode on, thinking nothing of it. And then it sunk in. That he saw a blue dude sitting on the side of a dirt road laughing wildly. He turned around and rode back to where he saw the blue dude and there was nothing there. He kept retracing his path beyond the roadwork and never saw the blue guy again. Later that day he went back to the village he was living in at the time and told the locals about what he had seen. The locals all laughed and said, essentially, "No you didn't. White men can't see devils." What's the creepiest, most unexplained thing you've seen in broad daylight? My dad, brother, and I went to a movie theater one day in Florida. Was around 4-ish, so it was getting darker but still light out. We went up to the front where you buy tickets, and when we looked around there was absolutely no one in the movie theater at all. No employees, no other guests. We simply walked in, looking all around to try to find anyone we could to purchase a movie ticket, but could find no one else. All the movies in each of the theaters we checked were running but with no one else inside, so we just sat down and watched a movie, then left without seeing anyone else the whole time. It was very surreal. I believe there is a name for this phenomena, but I would never know how to go about googling such a thing. But this was around 2013 or so, and I was having a smoke in front of my apartment on the front steps in the middle of the day. Around noon or so, I got up to head back, and just for a few fleeting seconds while looking at the building, it looked totally unfamiliar. I knew I lived there, I knew it was my home, I knew I had just stepped outside only 5 minutes previously. But my brain was giving me some kind of indication that I had never seen this place before and that there was danger inherent. I just kind of violently wagged my head back and forth, like an aggressive no gesture, and was immediately back to normal. But I'll never forget that moment. It was like my concept of reality had very momentarily just cracked. What is the scariest thing you witnessed with your own eyes? Was home alone as a teenager, during an aggravated burglary, heard something slamming into front door. Went to go open it, and realized I had locked the wire screen door. So it seemed odd they were knocking so hard directly onto the wooden door. Instead looked out the window and to the side to see a heavy man that I did not recognize. I yelled out, "What did he want?" No answer. Yelled a few more times, he stopped. Then started shoulder ramming the door. I panicked and went to grab the phone, and a kitchen knife. But halfway to the kitchen, I heard a huge crash at the back end of the house. Meanwhile the ramming was still happening at the front door. Heard someone scurrying through the back of the house swearing. Panicking, I didn't want to get caught in the middle of the house by two people, so decided to burst out through the front door and bowl over whoever was out there, knowing it was just one person, because I had seen him through the window. So that's what I did. Exploded out the front door, knocked the guy over and ran out into the street and to a neighbor's, and called the police. They were gone by the time the police arrived. Incidentally, they came back twice the next week, and again when I wasn't home. Neighbors told me. Ended up catching them, but definitely left a lasting fear in me. What's the creepiest thing that you've seen other families do that they accept as totally normal? I remember it was when Euro 2004 happened. I went to a friend's house for a sleepover. I was 12 years old then. So we go to his house where his and my mom dropped us there and left. His dad was there though. I never liked this man. Anyway, he welcomed us with the most unwelcoming manner, like he hated to have me for sleepover. We proceeded to his room, and played on his PS2. After half an hour, his dad enters the room and says, "Okay, I think it's about time, Michael, my friend." So Michael sits up and unplugs the PS2 and hands it to his father, who takes it and places it on top of a high shelf. Then, the dad makes a hug gesture, like welcoming Michael to hug him. Saying "speak the words," and Michael hugs his father saying, "Thanks father for reminding me to be moderate with distractions from the real life." The hug ends. He nods us to go to sleep. I went to sleep totally weirded out due to the happening, and caused my child brain back then felt bad for playing PS2 like it was bad. The next morning we wake up, eat and greet his mother who was there. Michael goes to his father and kneels before him and says, "Please father, can I be distracted for a while?" His mother was making coffee like it was totally normal to have her son knee in front of her husband and beg for his joy as if it was a sin. His father looks at me, then to Michael, and goes and brings down the PS2 like it was the worst thing he had to do. I didn't even touch the controller. I was totally uncomfortable in there. Never sleep over there again. Never. Ever. What is the most terrifying thing you've ever experienced while home alone? A couple years back I woke up at 3 a.m. to see someone walk past my bedroom door. I called out and I'd just woken up. Not thinking maybe my boyfriend had come over while I was sleeping, but got no response, so knew it wasn't him. Got out of bed, stupidly forgetting to take my phone or any kind of defensive item with me, and went into the front room where the light was on to be met with a random guy staring at one of the walls. I asked him who he was and got no answer. At this point I'd actually woken up enough to realize I could really be in trouble, so ran back to the bedroom. Grabbed my phone and ran outside on the phone to the police, who showed up within a few minutes. Turns out the guy was mentally ill, and to this day neither myself or the police know how he got in. What made you quit a job on the spot? I used to cut grass in a cemetery. I used a push lawnmower and had to lift it up onto the elevated graves, and then back down and on to the next one, over and over and over. Minimum wage was $4.25 an hour. After an hour of cutting grass in the August heat, I sit down for my break, and this guy named Leroy asks, "Was that worth $4.25 to you?" I quit the next day. Thanks, Leroy. Walked into the interview. Everything went well, accepted the job offer, went to the front desk to do the paperwork and noticed that the contract had a different pay amount, and that I would be earning for the first month for $100 a week. I asked first about the amount difference, was told, "Oh, this the standard contract. It just hasn't been updated for your specific offer." I told them they'd need to edit and initial the changes before I would sign. Oh, that's not how things work here. I thanked them for their time and left without signing anything. They called me back on the day I was supposed to have started asking where I was. I told them because didn't sign the contract. I was never an employee. Whew boy, that was a fun call. Waiters, what's the saddest time waiting for someone you have experienced? Once at my shift I saw a really shy guy. You could see that he is on a budget, but he was so trying so hard and looked so excited about upcoming date. He brought one rose, and asked what he can purchase on €10 to make this evening beautiful. My heart melted so much that I offered him for free 2 glasses of wine and a dessert. I was a manager. We put on a table some candles, and so he was sitting there and with a big smile waiting for his date to come. But she never came. He waited like 2 hours, nervously checking on his phone. When he left, he gave this rose to me and thanked for kindness towards him. He was so broke. So was my heart about this situation. Place I used to work at had a man come in every night for a week, wait for a few hours, order food and drinks, then leave with no one showing up. Later learned he was just trying to cope with his wife's death, believing that she'd arrived to greet him at the restaurant where they had their first date. Reddit, what is the saddest thing you've ever seen? We had 2 dogs, an older one and a 3 to 4-year-old that had been with the older one since he was a puppy. The younger one didn't do anything without the older one. The night we had to put the older one down, the younger one walked the whole house room to room crying and looking for his friend. My squadron commander in the Air Force, in the late 1970s, was a young female captain. One afternoon her husband passed away when his F-4 jet fighter crashed during a training exercise, but for about an hour she could not be reached. She was deliberating at a court-martial. I saw her return, park her car, walk into the building with her normal cheery gait, innocent and oblivious to the terrible news she would hear in less than a minute. When I was 22 I saw my dad cry for the first time ever, something about that just shakes me to my core.